Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we'll be discussing 3 of my favorite gacha games of all time. Going over their strong points, where they fall short, putting them against one another to find out where each one of them stands in every aspect until we finally discover who is worthy of that number 1 spot. So, and without any further ado, roll that intro! Well, seems tonight is about to be a banger just from the looksy of it. I am Imaginary Watcher, and with me here on the stands, I have... Oh! It's just me again. Hello, Watcher. Well, hi there, Watcher, and I agree. Seems like it'll be a long, interesting night here on the Imaginary Watcher channel. So, let's get it started already, shall we?
Introducing the first challenger, from Shanghai, China. Starring an impressive record of 8 years in live service, one of the founding fathers of 3D mobile gacha games, Honkai Impact 3rd!
That's right! Honkai Impact 3rd is on its way to its 10th anniversary, and yet it's still sporting a decent audience. This goes to show that Hoyoverse, or rather, back then it was MiHoYo who conquered the hearts of Honkai Impact's players, for them to stick around for this long. Even after the game practically ended and started over with the release of Part 2, they still didn't fumble the bag, which is really impressive.
Yeah, well, Honkai Impact 3rd might be one of the first ever 3D hack-and-slash gacha games to ever exist on mobile devices, and not be complete dog water. But will that actually be relevant when paired up against the next competitor?
Introducing the next competitor, from the colorful city of Guangzhou, China, with 5 years of live service under its belt, wildly known for its fast and flashy combat, join me in welcoming Punishing Grey Raven!
Now, I personally played Punishing Grey Raven when it first came out globally back in 2021. and I was very impressed by how well the game ran on low-end mobile devices despite all the rapid movements and neat effects. But I suppose now that the game had advanced and flashier characters and enemies were added, I don't think that holds up just as well.
That's true. Yet, that was an achievement on its own. The question remains, will it be enough to earn it the #1 spot?
I don't know about that, but I know one thing for sure. The next competitor is very eager to be introduced.
Introducing the next challenger. From Shanghai yet again. Created by the same people who published Arknights, Azure Lane, Blue Archive, and many more iconic gacha games that are thriving to this day, characterized by the unique 3-unit simultaneous deployment system and squad ultimate attacks. We have aethergazer!
Did you hear that? Yustar sure seems to have an impressive track record. You think that will give aethergazer an edge during comparisons?
Maybe, but you have to keep in mind that it is the newest out of the 3, and thus it had less time to develop and adapt to what the player base actually wants. So, yeah.
That is true. Now, with all the competitors on the stage, let us begin the triple threat match! Alright everyone, gather around, because things are about to get spicy.
Calm down, Watcher. First things first, let us start by talking story. A brief synopsis of each game's setting and an introduction to the main cast will do, though try not to spoil anything.
Oh fine, here I go. For Honkai impacts, the world is suffering from the titular supernatural force, the Honkai, which is constantly trying to destroy all of humanity. Through many ways, like causing what is basically the Black Death in Europe, raising the dead as sexy yet dangerous zombies, spawning abominations and all that shebang. The player is the captain of a flying battleship called the Hyperion, which belongs to a military organization named Jigsaw, which is dedicated to fight the Honkai. Their troops, the Valkyries, are specially trained and equipped women who dedicate their lives to their cause.
Wait, did you just say women? What about the men?
Well, while there are men in that military force called Knights of Jigsaw, they are very rare because women tend to naturally have higher resistance to Honkai influence compared to men.
So, hold on, you're telling me we only get to play as women?
Yes, Watcher, there's only one fully playable male character in the game, but it's only available in one game mode. Whether you see that as a win or loss is up to you.
Well, I certainly view it as a win, but it sure ain't good for the marketing of the game. Anyways, who's the main character?
Ah, that would be Kiana Kaslana, a rash and hot-headed rookie Valkyrie whose parts you will uncover through the story. I can't really say much about her without spoiling stuff, other than she's really well written. And through the game, you will see her develop in front of your very eyes and become a true hero.
Beautiful. Kiana seems to be actually an important character. But the story isn't just about her, is it?
Of course not. The most of the main cast, mainly Raiden Mei, Bronya Zajcik, Fuhua, Sere Volieri, and your sister, Teresa Apocalypse, are all important, and they're all just as well written as Kiana.
Wait, did you just say Teresa was my sister?
Of course, this is just the Part 1 cast. The Part 2 cast is splendid too. Even though they've only just arrived in the game compared to Kiana's friends, Dreamseeker, Sinadina, Coralie, Hylia, and Sonche feel like they've been with us for a very long time. Part 2's story takes place on Mars rather than on planet Earth, following the cast trying to uncover the mystery of the shadows and monsters slowly eating away at the planet.
That sounds like an adventure to me. Let me see what PGR has to say in terms of the story real quick.
Oh, I'm glad you asked, because Punishing Grey Raven's story takes place in a post-apocalyptic world, where Earth had already been ravaged by a biomechanical hazard referred to as the Punishing Virus. Most of humanity had already been wiped out, with survivors booking it to a space station orbiting Earth named Babylonia. From there, they sent out special android-like soldiers, referred to as constructs, to try and fight back against the virus in hopes of one day reclaiming the corrupted planet.
Wow, that sounds very near inspired to me.
Yeah, well, you know Kuro Games. They absolutely adore the Nier franchise. Hell, they even collabed with them a long time ago and added 2B, A2, and 9S as playable characters.
Damn, really? That's awesome. Now I feel bad because I missed it.
Can't dwell on the past too much. Instead, let's talk about the main cast of the game. The main character is a human commandant assigned to a squad of constructs called Grey Raven, consisting of Lucia, a blade melee type construct, Lee, a dual gun range type construct, and Liv, a support Levi gun construct. They work together with Commandant to fight back against the punishing virus. Now, unlike Captain from Honkai Impact, Commandant is actually an active character in the story. He has dialogue choices, events, and even a character sprites, whereas in Honkai Impact, the Captain doesn't really do anything in the main story. Instead, there was a series of events which formulated a story for the Captain completely unrelated to Kiana's story. Now, despite the early chapters being somewhat all over the place and neither here nor there in punishing Grey Raven, the story really picks up pace as soon as you pass a certain threshold. But the slow start and rather confusing narrative the game slaps you with as soon as it begins can prove a difficult challenge for the new players to keep up.
Ooh, that sounds rough. Is it really that bad of a start?
It's not the story itself that's bad, rather it was the way the game level gated its main quests, be it through commandant level or battle power. Also, you couldn't focus on just one narrative and follow it through as the game forces you to play its hidden stages between each main story arc, which are played from a completely different perspective, that being the enemy's perspective. Mostly. That and the fact that you have to grind XP to level up your gear and characters if you really want to stand a chance in the main story missions once the difficulty starts to catch up, really challenges your dedication to learning the lore of the game.
Yee, that sounds so unnecessary. What if I just want to enjoy the story without caring much for weekly bosses and events? What if I still haven't pulled the character I want to invest in yet?
Well, Watcher, it's either you play Punishing Grey Raven or you don't, because this game locks you into doing that whether you like it or not. Which is a bold move, just not in the right direction.
Well, what about aethergazer then?
We'll come to that. Aethergazer's story takes place in a utopic world for a change, where humanity found a safe haven living inside a supercomputer simulation which they nicknamed Gaia, escaping the dangers of the real world. However, and due to lore reasons, the simulation began to corrupt, with an infestation in its source code. This infestation would be later called the Visbane, and it would slowly corrupt the world, giving birth to terrible monsters and creatures. That is where the titular organization of Aethergazer comes in, creating modifiers who are special beings capable of altering the source code of Gaia and fighting back against the corruption. The main character, Admin, is a new Aethergazer employee who would take charge of and assist squads of modifiers from HQ. He is also active in the main quest similar to Commandant from PGR. Unlike PGR, however, Aethergazer's story doesn't seem to follow one certain line of events. Rather, each arc feels mostly self-contained and easy to digest, though the game does have a main cast from the perspective of which we follow the events unfolding, mainly through Verthandi, who is the modifier on the icon of the game. Now, Aethergazer does amp up the difficulty of the story chapters as you progress to be in the expected level range of your modifiers. However, it doesn't do so as fast, nor does it feel as forced as PGR. Also, most of the time the game would just give you preset teams to use in case you don't have your characters up to standard, so you don't even have to worry.
Impressive. Seems like they've thought of it all.
Oh buddy, not only that, because the story is simplistic and more watered down, it's very easy to get into. Also, the first few chapters are actually pretty decent, so the overall new player attention retention is great. Now it does come with the cost of story complexity and character depth, but overall I think, personally, that it is worth it. Alright, now with all the stories compared, it's time for ranking. Crashing in at the third place, we have Punishing Grey Raven.
What? Why?
Now, don't let this delude you, PGR's story is still very fantastic. It's just the slow start and forced level gating of progression that drops it down. Don't lose your hopes yet though, as this is just the beginning of this competition. At the second place we have Aethergazer, which did a fantastic job with retaining the player's attention and simplifying the story. And honestly, it would be placed higher if the other competitor wasn't Honkai Impact, that, strictly speaking, unfairly outclasses the other two games in terms of basically everything story related. It has more developed characters, more interesting events, arcs which leave players in tears, and the final nail in the coffin are those animated shorts. These amazing cutscenes which play at the end of most major arcs are absolutely beautiful, and I think with them mentioned, everyone should understand why it deserves first place. Don't go anywhere though, because we're about to get into the stuffing of these games. I, of course, mean gameplay, which is what many would argue matters the most in a video game.
But gameplay is a big word and encompasses a lot of things. How will we be comparing gameplay in 3 different games?
Good question. Allow me to explain. In this section, the ranking system will take into consideration 3 factors. 1. The actual fighting system and combat itself. 2. Character kit depth. And for this, we'll take the character with the most complex kits out of each game and compare how in-depth their skills actually are. 3. Bosses and enemies. With that being said, and keeping the same order as the previous section, we'll start with Honkai Impact. First, there's the basic attack combo, the weapon skill, ultimate button, and dodge button, which can have different effects if you time it well depending on the character. Some will parry, others will slow down time, etc, etc, as well as the elf/astral up button. You can also hold the attack button for a charged attack that varies from character to character, which is standard and straightforward. When an enemy attacks, there will usually be sound or visual cues for when you should press the dodge button. And some attacks can be easily avoided by simply walking out of their range instead. Also, in Part 2, characters have an additional jump button, as well as aerial combos and skills. In that light, enemies also get a toughness meter, which once reduced makes them stagger and fall to the ground, as well as take much more damage than what they would normally do. Lone Planet's Farer Vita is the newest and most complex battlesuit in Honkai Impact right now. So, we'll take her as representative for the game's mechanic, and let's explore her kit together. Already, and off-rip, Vita has 2 combat modes, Planet's Farer mode and mode. Tapping Alt allows her to swap between those 2. In Lone Farer mode, she can use her weapon skill to combo into enhanced versions of her 2nd, 3rd, and 4th basic attacks, while also pulling enemies in. In Planet Quaker mode, using weapon skill makes it so that her interdimensional kaiju mecha fires laser beams and assists into her basic attack combo, while also restoring her intelligence bar. Once full, hold attack to make the mech fire a goddamn orbital strike at the enemies before crushing them with its fists. Triggering QTE, Vita enters the field by casting her weapon skill, ready for a new combo to begin. Using ultimates while in Planet Buster mode, freezes time and also makes the mecha do this. Using the Astral Up skill makes her do this, and combos into her charged attack while also providing buffs to everyone on the team. Using either Alt or Astral Up debuffs all the enemies into taking more damage. While off the field, Vita still supports by attacking and buffing her allies depending on their Astral rank class. That was it for Vita's kit. Let's move on to the next competitor.
Thank you, watcher. Allow me to take it from here. In Punishing Grey Raven, it's around the same basic layouts in terms of control. The major difference is the lack of a weapon/character specific skill button, instead replaced by the signal orb system. Most of the time, characters have 3 colored orbs, which depending on how many orbs of the same color you can stack together before you pop, the level of the skill increases. For example, popping 1 red orb will cause the skill to be on level 1, while popping 3 will cause it to be at the max power. Now, orb management is kind of a double-edged sword, depending on which character you're playing. Older constructs will prove to be more stressful than newer ones because of their dependency on RNG for damage, while newer characters seem to have built-in skills to bypass such difficulties through a variety of ways, such as gaining special signal orbs after performing certain actions, having modes which transform all your orbs to the same color, etc, etc, which, again, at face value sounds good, as naturally, you don't want to be relying on RNG for your combat strategies. But that leaves the older characters in complete dust, as even though they sometimes get upgrades that raise their relevance in the metagame, it's still by no means comparable to newer characters who are naturally advantageous by design. Anyways, enough about that, and let's talk character kits. Alpha Crimson Weave will be our guest for this one, so pay close attention. Alpha has two combat modes, the one-handed blade mode and the Odachi mode. In the one-handed blade mode, she has one combo, a chain of ranged attacks, one charged attack which buffs her damage upon use, and one skill because she can only use blue orbs in that form. Once she uses ults, she enters the Odachi mode, and this gives her access to the rest of her kit. First, her sword bar grants her a leap attack, which replaces her charge attack. She no longer generates blue orb, transforming any that she already had into red orbs instead, which she can use in tandem with yellow orbs to charge her sword bar and cast her skills. Using ult again makes her do her signature move before sheathing the Odachi, going back to 100 blade mode, wrapping up her kits.
Okay, time to see what aethergazer has to offer. Allow me to take over real quick. Aside from the attack, ultimate, and dodge button, each aethergazer character has 3 buttons, which usually combo into one another for more unique moves and skills. For example, Nino Tokotachi or Jin-A has up to 4 different skills using different button combinations. Same with Hades and a lot of other characters. Now for the actual character kit comparison, I think the best one to take as a representative from aethergazer would be Izanami. So let's see what this modifier is capable of doing. Izanami has a special passive called Ice Mirror, the effect of which manifests when she reaches the 3rd attack of her normal combo or when she uses her 1st or 2nd skill. It causes a screen effect and breaks, hitting both Izanami and the enemies next to her, but only dealing damage to the enemies, not Izanami herself. Once hit though, Izanami immediately gains super armor and her 1st and 2nd skills change into a more powerful versions for a set amount of time. During her normal attack combo, Izanami can dodge to cancel out to the final hits, ready to begin another chain combo without delay or being stuck in an animation. Her 1st skill is a dash attack. It's triggering the Ice Mirror effect gives it potential to chain with the enhanced version of the 2nd skill. However, precise timing is required to get the full effects of the Ice Mirror effect, due to the small pause between the Ice Mirror appearing and breaking. Izanami's 3rd skill is a true block/parry. Using it successfully triggers a short cutscene, freezing the enemy, dealing damage and granting you a temporary attack buff. What makes this interesting is that you can use it to block your own Ice Mirror effect, which allows for huge combo potential and makes this skill into both an offensive and defensive tool. Izanami's ultimate attack deals damage and buffs the team's ice damage, while having great synergy with Kuramitsuha, having a combined ultimate which deals more damage and grants more buffs. That was it for Izanami's kit. Let's move on to see some bosses.
Right, move aside, my turn now. For Honkai Impact, it's easy to select the best boss because the perception boss fights exist. It offers a great fantastic variety of attacks, gimmicks, and even literally flips the entire game upside down, making you fight the reflection on the water. Also making the fight completely 2D at certain points. It is a great spectacle that you will absolutely enjoy experiencing. For PGR, it's a little bit difficult, and I had to choose whether or not to include the CN server bosses. Only after a lot of contemplation did I decide against it to prevent spoilers. So I chose the Trailblazer boss fight. While nowhere near as flashy or mechanically in-depth as the Perception boss fight, the Trailblazer fight is more about timing and grit, knowing when to dodge, when to parry, when to go in for damage, and when to step back before you get JoJo punched across the map, which absolutely makes it a worthy pick. In Aethergazer, I had to make an exception, and include a boss that isn't in the global version of the game already. That is because it's literally coming out the next patch, as I am writing this script right now, and the video might be up when the patch had already dropped, so bear with me. Gaia Weapon, Realm Ruler, is the epitome of AoE field control, the perfect challenge for positioning and reaction time. Dodging attacks isn't enough, you have to dodge and then get out of there or you'll get hit again. Besides, the spectacle of seeing a meteor shower rushing at you as MacFuck never gets old, and it reminded me of the Astel boss fight from Elden Ring.
Are you done? Good. Let us see the ranking now.
Sure, let's go. Lightning round.
Using the ranking system we previously established, we've got, in terms of fighting system and combat itself, PGR clears the other two games. The dodge is more responsive, parry feels satisfying and the enemy AI behavior demands constant attention, though regular hordes of enemies can be a bit of a pain to deal with, which brings it down a tiny bit, but not enough to actually rank it below the other two games.
That is correct. PGR finally takes the W in one of the categories. Will it keep up in the same track, or will that be the only W? Let's see.
In terms of character kit depth, Aethergazer absolutely obliterates PGR Honkai Impact, as every character is basically a Fuhua battlesuit in terms of Honkai Impact terms, or in PGR terms, at least an OG UI alpha. Izanami's kit being so deep that it actually turns a parry/block into an offensive move, the timing required to eliminate button mashing, it's just not even close. In terms of bosses, however, this one was surprisingly difficult to pick from. What Perception lacked for in Challenge existed in the Trailblazer boss fight, and what that one lacked in Spectacle existed in the Realm Ruler fight. In the end, I figured every one of these deserves at least a single point, so I decided to call this subsection a tie. With that being said, and after calculating all the points together, we have a hard tie between all three games, with Honkai Impact having 2 points from the story and boss fights,
PGR having 2 from combat system and boss fights,
and Aethergazer having 2 from character depth and boss fights.
a hard tie. Huh. Well, that's unexpected. What should we do about this?
Well, I think we should leave it to the ultimate make or break for any gacha game out there. Hint, it's in the name.
Oh, you sneaky bastard. You plan to compare gacha systems, aren't you?
That's right, and I think we both know where this is going. Both Honkai Impact and Aethergazer share a heart pity of 90 pulls for the guaranteed featured S rank, with PGR being the odd one out at 60 pulls for a guaranteed featured S rank, if you pull on the right banner that is.
Then I guess this settles it. PGR is clearly better in that regard.
Hold on buddy, wait a second. In PGR, the weapon banner has a heart pity of 30 pulls. But the drawback is that this heart pity only has an 80% ratio of giving you the weapon you're pulling for. There's also the cup banner, which needs another 20 pulls in order to obtain the cup that you need for your character.
Yeah, so it's still most likely that you'll be able to full gear your character in 110 pulls, which is much cheaper than Honkai Impact and Aethergazer.
That is actually true, but you forgot the fact that in Aethergazer, there is no weapon banner at all. Once you get the character, you're not limited on when to full gear like in the other two games. Instead, the Functor banner is always live, and you can take your sweet time farming to get the best Functor for your modifier. Not to mention the fact that there's basically no power creep, seeing as the leaderboards in the game only reward you with cosmetics and none of the currency is tied to the ranks, meaning that there is less competition, and by extension, more relaxed metagame, unlike PGR and Honkai Impact, which have a constantly changing metagame and leaderboards which grant currency, making the overall less expensive game actually be Aethergazer.
Here is your winner and the new overall best third-person hack-and-slash gacha game, aethergazer!
Oh buddy, who could have possibly thought this would be the case? I certainly didn't.
Bollocks, of course you knew. You made the fucking video.
I'm telling you man, I was fully convinced Honkai Impact or PGR would take the title when I started writing. Only when I finally reached the last bit did I finally see how Aethergazer could possibly take the game.
Whatever, they're all good games, and we play them all the time, so who am I to judge?
Yeah, I'm sure the viewers will agree too that each game is unique and does its own thing creatively enough to be the best in its own way. And of course, if they had a good time watching this video, they'll subscribe and press the like button to watch more content on their favorite gacha games from me. And with that being said, this was the Imaginary Watchers, and I'll see you around.